So let's crack on. One last time, for people that have just joined the stream, welcome to the stream and today's workshop. And it's a two-way street. At the end of each point, I'm going to open it to questions and comments. We're talking about how to create funky bass lines. And I'm going to run through kind of 10 points. 10 points. And there was something I was going to say. Yes, and there's a PDF pinned to the top left there. If you've got any questions and you want us to kind of stop and just and just interrupt the stream for a minute, if you use the super chat down at the bottom, looks like a little dollar symbol, then that'll get priority, and you'll stop me in my tracks.
There isn't one.
Super chat.
That's how I'll know when it happens, because that'll happen. Okay, so here we go. How to create funky bass lines. I'm sticking my neck out here. I don't even know if I can do it. So here we go. Point 1 I've put down is the importance of groove. Now, what I must say real quick, these are just some pointers. These are ideas that I've developed, okay? So this is not a definitive, be-all and end-all of how to create funky bass lines. These are just some of my ideas. So the importance of groove. So what I'm talking about, I'm just going to get my notes up here, because without them, I'm screwed. Any more comments while I do this, Jan?
Yeah, we have. Andy Turner and Doug as well. They're mentioning about Bristol HQ. Yes, we were going to be down there, weren't we?
Yes. Of course. Right. Yeah.
The storms were pretty bad. So, yeah, we were going to be going down in our little caravan, weren't we? Just to sort of stop nearby. But we thought we'd get blown off the motorway halfway down. So we decided to not bother, did we, Scott?
No, that's right. So sincere apologies there.
Yeah. It will happen at some point, won't it? But
it will.
Just not today.
Yeah.
And let's have a look. Andy Turner, good afternoon, both. Yes, it did. Eunice did scupper the Bristol plans. We've actually got, what is it, Franklin? No? We've got another storm at the minute up here. So,
okay, I didn't know what you meant there. So.
Yeah, third storm within 1 week.
Yeah,
it's just insane. Lots of rain, etc.
Right,
Jake
okay.
Taylor, late again. Normandy, Gilles Fichu, hi. Stripy Socks made it. And yeah, we'll come back to it.
Okay, so we're talking about the importance of groove, and now I've got my notes. We can crack on. To me, groove and funk are kind of synonymous. They're kind of like they're one and the same thing almost. You kind of can't. You certainly can't have funk without groove, right? And I put it as like number 1 point, because to me it's the most important thing when it comes to playing funky bass lines. So guys like Victor Wooten have kind of demonstrated many a time that you can actually groove and be funky without playing a note or even playing wrong notes. All right, so let's kind of like try and dig into that idea for a minute. So let's see if I got that. Got sound and everything. It's amazing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a rhythm just on my drum machine, on my little... okay, that's 100 BPM for those that are interested, right? Okay, and I'm going to like try and come up with something grooving, but not too complicated, right? I'm going to G. Just turn that up a bit. So the deal is with that, right? The main feature, the main thing about that, the main thing that was grooving really was just those short beats on the 1 of each chord. Check it out, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. You know, like in that instance, you know, you could let the drums kind of take the rest of it, right? Okay. So, but let's just try that same kind of thing. And I'm not going to play any notes in between. We're going to play some kind of rhythmic stuff, right? Let's try that. 2, 3, 4. You know, it's adding groove, but there's no actual notes there, right? Let me just play some kind of nonsense notes, right? The same thing. I'll do the same thing, but instead of doing a nice G and a C, you know, I'll just play something else, right? I don't know. So although it's got no tonal centre, you've no idea what's going on or where it's going, the groove's still there, and it's funky, hopefully, all right? So that is, groove is like super, super important. So that's kind of covering that first point. Any comments or questions come in there, Jan?
Yeah, Mark Smith's asking, can you make a major scale sound funky?
You sure can, and that's going to come up in a minute, actually. Yeah, good question.
Stephen McGrath was waiting for me to start rapping.
Let me just get some heat on here, by the way. Yeah. Where was the rap, Jan? What's going on?
Sorry, I let you down. Sorry.
You know, when the cameras aren't on, you know, she's just like, she's rap crazy. That's it. Calm down.
Yeah.
Any more, Jan? Is that about it?
Well, if we'll go through these, I think, later on.
Okay. All right.
They're
okay.
actually about me learning bass.
Well, it's got to happen. Right. Okay. So the second point I've got here is timing is crucial, right? And I really, really mean that. Timing is absolutely crucial. It's non-negotiable. Good timing is where it's at with groove, right? So we're not talking, it doesn't have to be metronomic timing as such, right? Although I'm quite a believer in getting as close as you can to that. But certainly the pulse, you know, so if like this rhythm here, right? The right, that kind of heartbeat running through it, that's got to be absolutely on the money. And the route to kind of keeping that on the money is to subdivide, right, the beat in your head, right? So what I mean by that is, can you hear the hi-hats, right, on this drum track, the hi-hats? So even if there's nothing playing, I'm kind of in my mind's ear, you know. It's you need to kind of focus. I imagine actually someone playing a hi-hat or a tambourine, right? So you know, and you kind of keep that in your mind. You know, you kind of focus on that sort of grid, right? And it takes practice to play along with a rhythm like that. You know, and keep bang on in time. But that's the way to do it, is to kind of like grid it out in your mind to 16th notes, right? And kind of, you know, like what a tambourine or a shaker might play. And a good game you can play is to, you know, get a metronome that will give you just like one beat on the front of every bar. So ba, 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 right? That's a long time to wait to be like in time again. And what you would do is try and fill in the blanks like that. Boom, boom, right? I don't know. Let me see if I don't think this metronome will go slow enough. Let me see. nice wine. I was hoping it wouldn't, actually. So let's have a go. So it's not actually, I think it's like, maybe like every first and third beat, we're getting a kick there. But it's enough to demonstrate. So if I just kind of go, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's really hard to kind of know exactly where that beat's going to fall, just randomly, right? But if I kind of make this grid, this artificial grid, right? So get a rough idea where it is. There it is. And then keep that going in your head. All right, so floated off a little bit here and there. And if I was early, when that next one came, I kind of sped up my little slightly until it fell into place again. And if you do that enough, by the way, my hands are actually freezing cold in here. I'm going to turn more heat on. Then you can be super, super accurate. Right, so let's see if there's anything else I wanted to... Right, so just a little quick thing on timing. Just from like a gigging point of view, over the years, one thing I've seen with other bands and maybe players I've worked with or whatever, if you've got great timing and great groove, then an audience can't keep still. People are nodding their head and tapping their foot and getting up dancing, and only great timing will let that happen, right? Poor timing, and you lose people off the dance floor. People start talking to each other. Now, that might not be your specific goal, but that just demonstrates the importance of timing. So any questions or comments coming, Jan?
Well, Mark Smith did that answer. He was asking, how do you practice timing? So did that answer your question?
Hopefully it will, yeah.
Ian Fraser said, all the notes up to now are damped, nothing ringing out. So is that left hand or right hand doing that?
It's kind of, I'm going to kind of get onto that, so I'll talk about that in a sec. Yeah, but good observation, yeah.
And John Fisher, hi Scott, you are assuming the tambourine is in your head, the tambourine in your head is in time. Also, transferring a thought into a motor function takes time and you can end up dragging a lot. Well,
it's kind of, it's a very, very good point. And so the thing is and it's a weird thing, right? It does take practice, but it's worth doing. There are things I should add about like turning a thought into a motor thing. You're not trying to copy what the tambourine's doing so much as just kind of almost hear it. Just kind of like just imagine it's there. You're not trying to go right. So, you kind of just kind of getting that. But a really, really important thing is that you almost need to move in some way as well, right? And again, it might take practice. If you've not been used to tapping your foot or moving your body or something like that, it's really important to do that, right? So you'll see a lot of funky players and a lot of just musicians generally will. Let me just get another rhythm here for a sec. They're doing that. Now, it just, might look like they're doing it for show or just kind of because they're having a ball or something like that. And maybe both of those are true. But that is really helping with that, keeping that underlying pulse going. Okay? If I don't do that, it's hard. If you just sit there and imagine the grid, that's harder to keep grooving. You know, so like get your body involved in it as well. Really, really good point. Okay. Any more on that particular point, Jan, before I carry on?
Yeah, just on the notes, actually. I mean, I know
Mhm.
that's slightly different to the timing, but Gary Denyer,
Yeah.
I think we've seen this video. Victor's philosophy, you know, Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a wrong note. I like that too, Gary.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really good. Yeah.
Paul Taylor, Paul Gilbert, he says, Paul Gilbert, a guitar player, not a bass player,
Yeah.
sings stroke vocalizes the funky riff, then tries to play it. Is that what you do, Scott?
That's the goal. You know, that's the goal. It is ultimately is to be able to, you know, hear something either in your head or that somebody's you want to mimic and then just play it. And you know, sometimes I'd like to think I'm good enough to do that, and other times I might be off the mark. But you know, but yeah, that's what you aim to do when you're improvising. You know, so yeah. Any more, Jan, before I crack on?
No, sorry, I just had a sip of my tea.
Okay.
No, that's it for now.
Okay. So next up, we've got the next point is 16th notes and their relationship with funk. Again, people tend to think of funk and 16th notes as being synonymous. Now, if you don't know what 16th notes are, they were what we were just talking about a minute ago. They're if you get a bar of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and split that into 16, you know, you get that 1 iana, 2 iana, or dagga 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 dagga, right? So a lot of funk is people just go funk 16ths, right? So drummers start playing 16ths on the hi-hat, bass players go slappy nutty and stuff like that, right?
Slappy
nutty, yeah. Now, whilst 16th feels and notes and things like that and parts certainly have a big part to play in funk. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be really 16th and fast and stuff like that, right? So, quite often, and again, there are no hard and fast rules with this stuff, right? But quite often, if you think of different bands, I've got a few examples where some players in the band or some parts will be really 16th and busy and doing all the all that sort of stuff. Or it might be a guitar playing like the funky rhythm thing. And then maybe the bass is playing something really quite, tied down and relatively simple. And they kind of they complement each other to create a groove. So I've written a couple of examples of that. Might be Stevie Wonder's Superstition, right? So you've got it's a double tracked, actually, clavinet part. All that stuff he's doing is really funky and busy. It's got this, it's like swung 16ths almost. It's so instead of being it's like almost, right? Really kind of busy, lot going on, and that's kind of really locking in with the drums. The hi-hats are doing a similar thing, but the bass part is kind of doing this like, is it E flat? I don't know. I'll do it in E. For the most part, it's just playing 8th notes like that, right? But it works great. Great. What am I saying? Works great. I'm not going to put it on the stream because it might lock us off for like copyright. But check it out after, right? The bass is kind of hinting, right? And I'm going to get to this, hinting at the 16th stuff, right? So you got like, that's it, right? Which is a muted note. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But basically, a very simple bass line against a very busy rhythm part from the keys, right? Now, and another example where the opposite is happening is the Sun Goes Down. You know, the level 42, Sun Goes Down, Living It Up. So that's got that... That's kind of the bass part on that. It's very busy and syncopated and funky. And for the most part, the drums are kind of like 8th notes. Right?
Gary Denyer's actually commented about level 42, and he was saying Mark King and Phil Gold were masters at playing off each other in 16ths.
That's it, and there was a lot of that going on with level 42. Phil Gould is a monster player, beautiful player. And that had come out, when he'd fill and solo and things like that. But a lot of the time, like I was just saying, he's just kind of doing a 4 on the floor thing, and whereas Mark's parts are like really syncopated and he's pulling stuff on off beats and all that kind of thing. I'm going to talk about syncopation in a minute. So first of all, funk doesn't have to be fast 16ths, right? So it's kind of a good thing, because if you're not already into that kind of thing and you find it tricky, you can be really funky, without doing that. And then at the same time, you've got kind of stuff where maybe everybody is playing a very 16th-y, fancy, tricky sounding part, if you want to call it that. A good example, but you can have that going on all at the same time, but the parts are complementing each other and kind of question and answer sort of stuff. So I put down like on my little thing here, average white bands cut the cake. I think that's a good example, because I don't think anything's playing a particularly simple thing rhythmically. It's all doing a lot of 16th-y stuff, but it's all different, and each part complements each other, So that's kind of it on 16ths and their relationship with funk. Any more comments or questions, Jan?
Yeah, a couple of good examples. John Fisher says, you're right, 16th notes does not equal fast. Fantasy by Earth, Wind and Fire is all 16th, but is not fast.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, I was sort of, partly suggesting you don't have to play. In fact, what I'm saying is it's not a great idea if everybody's playing 16ths. If guitar players got kind of going and the bass is going, everyone's doing the same thing. It can work in little flurries and stuff like that. But for the most part, complementary or kind of contrasting parts work really well. And like you say, 16ths, groove so well at slow temperatures. I've just like Freudian.
Is it past your bedtime, Scott?
No, my hands are cold. You see, like I love it.
Gary Dennis, another good example. And the beat goes on. I like that song by the Whispers.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Love Games, Can Voodoo, Love Games.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, some good examples.
Very good examples.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to point 4 now, which is syncopation. Stroke playing and accenting off beats. Now we're kind of getting more into the mechanics of this stuff now, and this is kind of riding off the back of that last point I made about 16th notes. This term syncopation, anybody out there know what it means? It's a term that I'd heard for years. Like as a sort of self-taught muso, and people are like, "Oh, it's really syncopated." I'd be like, "Oh yes, what's that mean?" But essentially, it to my understanding, like this isn't a textbook, definition, but to my understanding, it's taking notes like what we used to call the offbeats and the pushes. So if you got like 1 and 2 and 3, but the ands, right, and you're kind of accenting those guys and missing out some of the more obvious 1, 2, 3, right?
Nicholas Smith's got it. Offbeats.
There you go. Yeah. Off beats, pushes. That's right. And that creates this kind of like really funky kind of feel. You're kind of hinting at the 16ths and you're pulling odd ones out here and there. And that's why your timing's got to be absolutely on the money, because if you've got 2 musicians in a band that are trying to lock onto that 16 things, right? And they're pulling odd. Look at the distance in time between those. There's such a tiny distance in time between those things that if your timing's not bang on and you've got 2 people like that, instead of them locking like that, right, they start to do this and you just get this kind of nonsense, right? So people can still groove a lot, so if your 16th playing ain't that great, right, then just do the kind of the superstition thing, that's what I'm saying. Bomb, bomb, bomb. You can still groove and lock in and let someone else take that kind of 16th-y stuff and complement it, right? And this syncopation thing, without kind of realizing, is kind of a big part of what I do and something I'm really into. And you can do it with 16ths, by the way. So that 1E and a 2E and a 3. It's picking out different notes. Let me show you. Let me try and show you. I feel like I can't play because my hands are so cold. Okay, let me slow that down a bit so you can kind of hear the 16ths a bit more. Right? So those hi-hats are 16 beats. Okay. And what I'm going to do is try and pull some. First of all, I'm going to get that locked into that in my head. That. And they're going to just pull. Actually, I'm going to, because they really pop out. I'm going to pull out some of those 16ths. So like really pulling on those weird, and they might sound kind of, we're a bit out of time. They might sound kind of out of time, but they're the kind of in between notes, right? So you mix those in. Let's create a little D bass line, just a root thing, right? One. I'm doing this on the fly, by the way. Oh yeah, so I'm gonna play a D on the one of each beat. Bar. A 1, 2, 3, 4, D. I'm going to double that up now. So play like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it sounds a bit kind of staid, it's not terribly funky. So what I'm going to do is that second one I'm playing, the 1, 3, the D on the 3, I'm going to try and move that off that obvious beat and do like a push. Too many mixed up terms, Jan. All right, here we go. So the 1 and the 3 are good. Sorry. So the 1's going to be on the 1, on the beat. And the 3 is going to be off. So at the minute we've got this 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and that guy I'm going to shift so it's syncopated, right? How much more funky is that? And all I've done is kind of shift to a kind of more syncopated beat, right? So that's kind of power of syncopation. And it's a weird thing. And there are all kinds of games that you can play to do this. I did a video, I think I called it, you might be able to search YouTube for it. It's called Think Maths First or Rhythm First. I think, Think Rhythm First. So you could type Scott Whitley Think Rhythm First. Hopefully that'll bring it up. And there's a little grid that you can download and kind of just fill in random 16ths. So that, I think, covers what I was going to say about that. Anything come in, Jan? Any more comments or questions?
Yeah, I was just listening to the sound there. We might end up flying in the air in this log cabin. Goodness knows. It's mad out there.
It's been Kansas, right?
Yeah. Stephen, I did wonder. He said it's like kipping a stone across the time signature, but he did correct it, skipping.
Right.
Yeah, with the.
I like kipping. That's good. Yeah.
And let's have a look. Bass face, Brick House by the Commodores, good syncopation.
Fantastic.
Gary Denius says syncopation between clavinet and bass. Best example I know of is Larry Graham's Hair, funkiest line ever. Yeah,
and it's a weird line to play if you've not tried, which I bet you have actually. It's a great one. Very cool. Any more, John?
No, not regarding what you're talking about at the moment.
Okie doke. So let's get on to point number 5, ghost or muted notes. So this came up a minute ago. Somebody asked about you playing mostly ghost notes or muted notes, and that's why I've kind of put that in here, because they're a big part of the way I play, and a lot of players play actually. And I'd be interested to know in the comments, do you use ghost notes and muted notes yourself already? Is it something you want to get more into? Be really interested to know. But yeah, what we're talking about is all the stuff in between the actual sounded notes, right? So for example, if I play, it's probably best to demonstrate this first with slap. You can do it with any technique, but it's just so percussive, right? So if I kind of do, let me see. So just that. Right? The only actual notes are that. So let me try and do it without the... I actually find it quite hard to do without that ghost note stuff. But yeah, so those added things, as opposed to, right, are really adding like a load of groove and a load of funk and stuff. And when you put the drums in, you don't hear it as clearly. Without. With. Okay, it's more subtle when the drums are in. So if you're doing this like with a band or a drummer, it's more subtle, but it still adds a hell of a lot. I think you'd agree. So let me just see what I've written down here. I've just kind of said, and this is what I'm going to say now as well, funnily enough, that the muted notes are almost as important as the notes themselves. And you could create a part. Let me do a similar thing, right, using fingers, because obviously not everybody's a slap player. Let's see. I'm going to come up with something different if I can. I don't know. Over B. Right. 2, 3, 4. So what we got there? So a lot of that, we've got those notes, but all right, so a lot of that is kind of rhythmic dead stuff, right? And sometimes it actually helps you kind of if you hear an idea, say you kind of hear a drum rhythm that you think, oh, that'll make a good bass line, bum 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 dum bum bum dum. You hear that dum dum dum, right? So I've kind of like just slapped the strings. I wonder if this works. Let me see. Yeah, so like and there was another one there. So we got bum, bum, slap, the note, and then a muted, and then a note. So you get this. Muted notes again. So they're like really powerful. You can use them to kind of lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, dum. Something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just whatever, just experiment. And if you've not used ghost notes or muted notes much before, you can do stuff like take scales and play them like mute, then note, mute, then note. For example, like major scale, You could do mute, note, mute, note, mute, note, mute, note. That kind of thing. Or the other way around, note, mute, note, mute, note. Just anything really. Just kind of incorporate it into what you're doing. Or even just sit there and just do like everything muted. That's a great idea. Just have fun and just kind of try and play along with things. Just kind of just mute your notes. So everything muted. Etc. Okay. So that's it for muted notes. Any more questions or anything, Jan? Anything come in?
Nicholas says split the pulse into 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and syncopated notes are the and.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's. I think that's kind of what was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel confident I got that semi right there.
And
Any more?
Baseface, sorry, I don't know this name. Perhaps you're familiar with it, Scott. I hope I pronounce it right. Rococo Pressure
Okay.
was great for 16th and Ghost Notes.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. I thought that was who. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I must apologise because my desk's a right mess. I've just realised I've been painting, haven't I, Scott?
She's an artist. Yeah.
Dear me.
So yeah, absolutely. A lot of these kind of funkier players, as like funkier, kind of like stereotypical, if you like, funk.
Super chat.
It's got a super chat. What would you like to say? Who is it?
It's David Milne, and he hasn't asked any question or anything. I think that's just a very nice gesture.
Well, that's very, very lovely indeed. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
very much appreciated.
All helps to support the channel, doesn't it,
certainly
Scott?
does. It certainly does.
No, he has got a question.
All right, okay.
He just didn't type it in the thing.
Okay.
Any advice on being funky with a pick, a la Bobby Vega?
Now, it's really funny because, honest to God, as that last, comment came in, I was actually thinking of him and how he kind of does that. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. As usual, it's really weird, this stream. I've done all this prep and paperwork and I haven't played today. So, but let me just really quickly try a bit of that, okay? The other thing is I'm on a funny rocking chair, which I've done the live stream on before. Let's have a look. Yeah, because he does a lot of... let me just try it, right? Come on. Okay, so yeah, that's a thing in the vein of him, and it's the same thing. There's that constant kind of like 16ths, funny enough, and then he's just pulling odd notes out. Okay, that sort of thing. So yeah, keep it. That's the general thing, is to keep that 16th thing going. It's quite a good way of actually getting into the syncopated stuff, because almost like everything up is syncopated. So if you kind of just go down, right? Everything up is kind of syncopated. Let me try that over like a G thing. So what I was doing is keeping that motion going all the time, and only actually playing the ups. So I'm exaggerating. That's why it sounds so clumsy. But yeah, hope that helps.
He says awesome, so I think it did.
Cool as. Cool as. All right, so what have we got next? The hypnotic effect. Right. So what the hell am I talking about now? Just before I get into that, have a think what you think that might be. What am I on about? Anything else, Jan, come in?
I think people were just loving that with the pick. Ian Fraser, yeah, love that. And Mark B says nice.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, Gary Denyer. Sex in a Pan, Bella Fleck, Victor Wooten, awesome muting on the bass.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let me just actually, I keep veering off, but really, really quick. Wooten's got this thing where he plays a lot of muted stuff, really hinting at 16ths. Let me try and do that. Wooten-esque. This is not even Wooten technique, right? So, ah. So very messy, but yeah, but you get that. There's a lot of that going on. You're messing up. Yeah, it's very pointing. You know, there's a lot of muted stuff, sort of hinting at some of the 16ths and some of the notes. You know, but yeah. Any more, Jan, before I crack on?
Mark's asking, Mark Smith, effects. Were you using effects?
Well, funnily enough, that is coming up in a minute. Yeah,
Aha.
yeah. What time are we on, actually? Better rally through this. Right, let's have a look at this, the hypnotic effect. So really, really quick, I'm going to push through these now. A lot of funky music, if not all really good funky music, almost has a kind of hypnotic effect. Now, to me, you know, like funky stuff and pop and dance and all that kind of thing, it's all in the same kind of vein. And I'm a big believer in when you go to work on this stuff, right? So a great way to kind of just practice being funky and writing funky bass lines, is to work with a drum machine. Just throw it on, throw in a random tempo, you know, and just see what you know it inspires you to try and do. But what I'm talking about here is, right, let me just change the rhythm up, right, and let me get something that maybe sounds funky-ish. Funk 1, that should have a good go at it, shouldn't it? Okay. Now I could just listen to that rhythm and just go off waffling and playing all kinds of nonsense, right? Let's do that. So kind of like playing notes that are in the right key generally and stuff like that. But to me, it's just nonsense. You know, it doesn't go anywhere. It might have a bit of groove, you know, but what is much more effective than that, in my opinion, is to kind of, someone mentioned it earlier, trying to hear a line or an idea. It could be really simple. This is better than what I just did, much better. Again. Okay, so I could quite happily sit and just keep playing that for ages now and really concentrating, like I felt I was rushing a bit at first and playing it a bit too hard and just really just like getting that locked in, you know, I'll just a bit more bottom end and a lighter touch. Right? Net result like 100 times what that first thing did, right? but then you can springboard off of that. But what I'm doing there is kind of like writing a bass line rather than just playing notes, if that makes sense. And then that actually, I think, inspires you to play other stuff. So one more time, that same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Super Chat.
Hey, we got a super chat, so hopefully that demonstrates that. What we got, Jan? Thank you, by the way. Thank you so much.
Adam Mahama says, Scott, Jan, really great live lessons. Sorry, got to go. Grandkids, not the slightest bit interested in funk. Oh, that is sad. You need to get them sorted on that one. Currently learning Make That Move by Shalimar, which fits nicely into what you're saying. Yeah.
Cool, lads.
Shalimar.
Thank you so much, Sam. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so that, that is...
By the way, it was Adam, not Sam. Sorry.
That's all right. Hang on, I'll put your camera on again. So what I'm saying there is that this creates a hypnotic effect, right? People, like a listener, somebody who's, in an audience or, listening to a track you've made or whatever, right? If you go, dum dum bum, they're like, oh, where's this going? And then it goes, dum bum, bum. All right. Dum dum bum. I know where it's going. Right? They've kind of learnt it off that one time because you've kind of just laid it down and stuck to it, right? So so that is the kind of hypnotic effect, and you've won listeners over right away, right? And as long as you keep something like that going, it might be like the Bootsy thing where it just lays the one down and then fills the rest of the bar with something else. That is the hypnotic effect. It's like a magic thing, and it can happen to you. You can get so into it that you get almost like hypnotized by what you're doing. Very rarely in my case, but you do, and then the whole thing takes off. Okay, so that's what I mean about the hypnotic effect. Looping, keep it simple, and build outwards from there. Play something meaningful if you like. Okay, so any more before I crack on, Jam?
Yeah, I was just going to say the funk stuff really does hypnotize me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's my favourite kind of music is funk, always has been since I was very young. And if there's some really funky stuff, I have to get up, don't I, and dance it, and
Yeah, that's it.
Sometimes not in very appropriate places, but it just really does that to me.
Yeah, it does, and that's that's what funky can do. That's what funky can do to you. Yeah. So yeah, any more, Jam?
No, I think that's it at the minute.
Okay, thanks for the super chats, guys. Unbelievable. It really, really is appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. There's only 4 more. What time is it?
Oh my goodness me!
Going to rush through this. The last one is very quick. The power of tone. Somebody already asked about, do I use effects or that kind of thing. The thing is, tone is not going to make you funky, right? Inherently, you've got to apply all those other things that we've talked about. You've got to concentrate on all the other things, the timing, and creating loop kind of figures, like repeated figures we just mentioned, things like that. And somebody, like who's already good at this stuff could take a really bad tone. Let me like try and. I'm not saying I'm really good at this, by the way. But let me get a really. That's not what I call a great tone by a long stretch, right? But let me try and do something with that, right? Even with no, I'm not going to rely on the drums. Let me try. Right, so I hate that tone. It's rubbish, but you can be funky through it, and kind of. But if we go the opposite and actually find a tone that just from one note, right, kind of sounds funky, kind of say, "Ooh, that's going to be funky," right? Something like that. Let me see. Let me improve on that if I can. 1 sec. Try this. Right, that just says something funky about to happen here, right? So let's try the same thing. I'm going to 2, 3, 4. right? It just like I played a note and went, oh man, that sounds so cool, right? And it actually inspired me to play something better. Like it was, it just sounded funky. So tone, right? The power of tone we're talking about. Tone can really, really kind of assist you, if you like, in helping your stuff sound more funky and like actually inspire you. So I've got a few things that work really well. I won't do it just now. I was going to swap to this P bass that's got like old flat wound strings on. A P bass with old flat wound strings. Let me try and mimic it the best I can by palm muting and turning the treble off. Right, that's going to give you like what I call like a really classic 70s old school kind of funk vibe. Let me see if I can get anywhere close. Like.
David's just saying goodbye, David Milne. Thank you. Thanks so much, you two. Got to go and feed the dog.
Cheers.
Wow. One of the best things about your format is the tangents you go off on. I learn more than than the planned content.
I love it. I think I do too. Yeah, it's better. It's better than the planned content. Here we go. This is as near as I can get with an active bass with round wound strings on to that kind of vintage thing. Yeah. One more time. All right. So that's the kind of vibe you might get with flat wound strings and a P bass and that kind of thing. And it just puts you in mind of those 70s P-funk kind of things and, disco tunes and stuff like that. So if you take that kind of tone and apply all the other stuff, it's just like, mega funk, all right? It's like when you master a record, you do all the best things you can to make the record sound good, and then you master it, you mix and master it, and that just kind of gives it that extra push and sheen. Envelope filters or auto wahs, that was that effect I was using a minute ago. That gives you that kind of wah, wah, wah vibe, all right? Wah, wah, wah. A new 80s tribute band called Wah, Wah, Wah. Right, it's going to wah, wah. And that's got an octave underneath it as well, right? All right, so that to me kind of really helps with inspiring you to sound funky. Synth bass pedals, great, because so many funk tunes and stuff actually have synth bass on. Bright hi-fi, funnily enough, active kind of sounding basses for percussive stuff like this. That kind of a. Actually, Gary's basses are astonishing for that kind of thing. They got that really crisp kind of hi-fi tone. Very percussive. So yeah, Gary Denyer, check him out. And then palm muting whilst playing with the pick. That's another thing. We've touched on that as well. I was actually not palm muting. I was doing that. But if you palm mute, so if you move your hand in like this, so you get that, it's game over. All right. So there's some ideas of tones and effects and things like that can really help with funk. And that's not the definitive list by a long stretch. Any more, Jan, really quick?
Yeah, Gary just says thank you, Scott. George Levantovsky.
You're welcome, by the way.
Greetings from Finland. Thank you for all the tips and wisdom. Can you give... this is quite in-depth, actually, so maybe another lesson or something. Can you give some tips for writing stroke, composing bass line in the modern pop stroke R&B style? For example, Bruno Mars. I'm not a bass player, I'm an engineer.
All right.
But like I say,
it's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question, and I will have to cover that in another one. So, by all means, fire me an email on scott@scott-whitley.com. Jan might be able to put that in the stream. I don't know if you've got that keep doc, Jan, later.
Yeah. He also says, it's sometimes pretty hard to come up with a bass line which doesn't steal too much space from other band instruments, or especially the singer.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Again, it's another topic. I could talk about tangents. I'd love to go down there, but drop me a line on that one if that's cool. Hopefully, Jan can drop the email address in there.
Yeah.
And then we can look at that in another stream. So, we're moving on to point 8. We're nearly there, guys and gals. And we're not so bad. It's only like an hour since the actual topic started. And we are talking about committing to an idea. So this is very similar to that thing I was talking about before, where you, like kind of create lines, loops, that kind of thing. And this is similar. It's like, it's that hypnotic thing, right? So what I'm talking about is just being bold with what you do, right? This is if you sit with a drum machine and you're just playing, or whether you're at a jam night, whatever you're doing, right? If you feel an idea and you go for it and it just kind of goes, or it wasn't quite right or whatever, don't just kind of cower away and just start again, or, get whatever. Just try and commit to what you did, and follow it through, kind of like, almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll find it in a minute, but commit to what you did. Let me try and demonstrate what I'm talking about here, right? Because it happens to me a lot. Right, let's have another rhythm. Whatever, it doesn't sound funky at all, but we can make it funky, I think. Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking that kind of rhythm, right? And I'm thinking like a G minor kind of thing, or G7th, right? Just what I'm conjuring up in my head. So I'm going to kind of purposely get it wrong, right? All right. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. Oh. Clearly those notes aren't what I was hearing, right? And 2 things you could do right now. One is this. Was it? Right? You could fumble around and try and find it. Or you could go, well, you know what, like the groove was there, like, and just keep pounding that groove out. Maybe just repeat what you did, and try and find your way with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That sounds better. I like that now, that flat 5, that note, right? That kind of sounds a bit weird, but I like that now. And because I keep hammering it home, it's like, yeah, it becomes a thing. Another approach you could do is, and the reason I'm saying this is, when you're getting into improvising and creating your own lines or whatever, or jamming, it's easy to just kind of stop and start again. And it's better to try and break through and get into that real-time thing, okay, that commitment. Here we go. So here's another thing you could do, is you could just kind of maybe keep the groove going till you kind of compose yourself. Let's say it was more of a finger thing that went wrong. And it's happened to me earlier, right? So let's say it was like this. Right? So let's say it went wrong like that. Don't try and fumble your way back. Just let the groove carry. Just relax and just have another go, right? 2, 3. Ah. 2, 3, 4. And then you're on it, okay? And we didn't lose the groove. It kept funking. Nobody probably noticed. You look so confident and committed to what you were doing. And if it's just something you're doing on your own, it's the same thing. You kept going. You kept it going. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Commit to an idea. Jan, anything coming?
Mark was just asking, what drum machine are you using?
The drum machine I'm using is built into the Zoom B1. And I think there's a link in the description below the video. It's like an Amazon link. I don't make a lot of money and it doesn't cost you any more. But if you're interested in one, click on that link. But yeah, it's the Zoom B1 X4. It's the same as the Zoom B1.4, just one's got a little pedal on it. And they're just built into that. It's really cool. Great little Swiss Army knife for bass, for like practice and stuff. Any more, Jan?
That should also answer Anurada question. I'm not sure, sorry if you're male or female, but hopefully that answered your question.
Cool. Now, the next bit I'm going to kind of skirt really quickly over, and it is which notes sound funky. So we talked a lot about all the rhythm stuff and not a lot about the notes. And the reason I've done that is because hopefully I've been trying to demonstrate along the way that the groove is so important. You know, the feel, that's going to give you a lot of the funk. And the notes, you know, all the muted stuff as well. Okay. Obviously, the notes are super important as well. So this is kind of, there's a couple of things somebody asked earlier. It might have been Mark, I can't remember. Can you make major scale notes sound funky? I think he was saying. So let's have a go at that. All right, so here we go. I'm getting all the wrong rhythms here. It's great, this drum machine, honestly. Right, so let's try like, I'm going to play a few things to get your ears around major scales. So here's C, right? So here's a C major scale. Not trying to be funky, just playing it. So let me try and be funky with that. So yeah, kind of, you know, well, not kind of, like you can't, that was kind of funky, but you can be very funky with major scale.
I'm dancing away on my chair here.
So yeah, you know, like, and you can be funky playing like, you know, kind of notes you might associate with metal, you know, let's see. So, you know, like the notes, there are no notes that are funky or whatever. But really, really quickly, and it's in the PDF. If nobody's, if you haven't got it yet, there's a link in the chat. I don't know if it's down there or over there.
It's at the top, actually,
it's at the
chat.
top of the chat pinned. And you can download this sheet that I'm kind of using as reference here that I put together earlier. And there's a scale that if you just said play something funky over a D, right, and you didn't give me a key or a chord, you just said play something over D, I might default to using like what's called like a dominant thing. It's like a seventh chord type feel. So it's on the sheet, so you can have that for reference. But just really quick, a seventh chord is it's made up from notes 1, 3, 5, and a flattened 7 from the major scale. 1, 3, 5, and flat 7. And like a little bass version of that, a mini sounds like that. That's what a D7 sounds like. All right? And essentially, the scale that I might use to go along with that is like a major scale, right? With a flat 7. So here's a major scale. And you swap that for that guy. So it's easy to remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. All right, so all you have to do is think, if you know a major scale, just flatten the next to the last note before, well, the 7th note. And that's used a lot for funky stuff, right? So let me try and demo that. So it's a funny thing there. I kind of like tried to do that committed thing and forgot what I played the first time. That happens to me a lot. I've got a very short memory, you know. but I kept trying to move back to it, and lock it in and lock it in and lock it in. And if it had kept going, that would have happened. So so that's that kind of 7 scale, a major scale with a flat 7. And sometimes I'll just, like I say, this is just if someone says, would you play something funky over a D? And they don't specify what key or anything. I might add some bluesy notes, right? So I might add, like I say, it's all in the sheet, so I'm going to skip over it, but I might add a minor third and then hammer on into a major third and a thing called a flat 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your major scale. That guy, it's in the blues scale. So, and I might use those two to kind of pivot into the note next to it. Let me try that for you. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. All right, so that was kind of using those, bluesy notes and then moving into the dominant scale notes or the 7th scale. Any more, Jan? Any more questions?
Not questions, just comments. Mark Smith's reaction to your major scale funkied up thing was, shut up. I think that was meant in the nicest possible way.
I feel all hip and modern now. No one's said that to me before, So go. Any more, Jan? Is that it?
Yeah. Oh, play that funky music, Whitley boy, Doug says. Like I say, I'm dancing away, loving this lesson, this kind of whatever workshop, yeah.
Funk,
Love it.
Yeah, so we're getting towards the end, okay. I've put, so which notes sound funky? I think we've covered that. And then last but not least, above all, let go of your inhibitions and have fun. Kind of like a really obvious, speaks for itself kind of thing. But just to say, if you think of the funk giants, if you think of Larry Graham, if you think of Mark King, if you think of, Prince, and you think of all those kind of, like Bootsy Collins and all those guys, really flamboyant kind of characters, and it seems to be, again, I'm using that word synonymous again with funk acts and stuff, right? Because it is such a kind of, a soulful, like from in here kind of style of playing. I think there's a lot in it, and even when you're practicing at home, it's easy to be like kind of inhibited if you've not done this kind of thing before. And a lot of the times when I'm moving around and making noises and doing all that stuff, there's probably a little bit of performance going on because that's been my job for so long. But I would be doing that on my own to a degree. I would, if I was sat here practicing, I wouldn't be doing this, right? I'd be like this. Because you get more into it, you feel more funky. So the best, what I'm saying is, if you've not done this kind of thing before, is just try and think rhythms, try and think, put that rhythm on, do it more slowly if you like. Don't, just do like kind of try beatboxing or something like that, whatever. But just, try and let the old inhibitions go, and just have a do, just have a go. Just even if you don't have a clue what notes you should be playing, just think of a rhythm and just kind of, just try and voice something, because funk is that, it is like a rhythmic freedom, I guess. I guess that's what we're talking about. So that's it. And I think that kind of covers most of what I was going to talk about today, if not all. So before we go, has anybody else dropped any comments, Jan?
Jerry Bates says thanks. Bill Smith says thank you. And then there were just some comments, obviously, on the different things you were playing. Gary says Louis Johnson, crazy. Anurada
So crazy.
says, thanks so much, dear sir and madam.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us from Sri Lanka.
Amazing. Thank you.
Hope you'll come next week too.
Yes.
And Andy T says, Funky Sabbath, love it.
I like that.
Debussio, thanks Jan and Scott, nice funky stuff.
Thank you.
Andy T, thanks a lot again, both of you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Andy.
There's quite a lot of comments actually, so I think obviously it's run over yet again.
Yeah.
We can have a reply of those and hopefully sometime this coming week rather than in 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everyone. Give us some feedback on the stream. A lot of you already have. We'll be reading through the rest of the comments afterwards. Thanks a million for those super chats. It means so much. So it's pretty much, I think, goodbye from me, Jan.
Goodbye from me too.
And just to say, you can now funk off.
Oh dear.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Have fun. Bye. Don't forget to download the PDF. See you later. Bye.
Bye.